Welcome to another edition of Regions Extra SEC Stories, where we go behind the scenes to give you a little something extra behind the greatest rivalries in college football. I'm Peter Burns. That is Christopher Doering. What's one of our favorites, CD?
Oh, it's got to be the Egg Bowl, the most under-talked about rivalry out there. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we wanted to get into this, to expose everybody to the emotion, to the intensity of this rivalry.
Just the chaos, and no better people to talk to about it than the people that were on the sidelines and playing in that game as well. We start off this episode of Regions Extra SEC Stories talking about the Egg Bowl with one of the legends himself, Sherrill. There's no better coach to talk about the history of the Egg Bowl than the legend himself, Sherrill, who had so many appearances in this great rivalry. Coach, when I say Egg Bowl, we'll start with this. What comes to mind?
Well, certainly Mississippi State game. And the difference, and Chris, you played in a lot of them, and I've had the opportunity of Iowa State, Iowa, Pittsburgh, Pitt, same thing, Alabama, Auburn, on, but in the state of Mississippi, because it's not a large state, that game is really important because either you're Mississippi State or Mississippi, and it could be some Southern fans in there, but it's a big deal. And over the years, the connotation, the Egg Bowl, was actually founded by a reporter because both teams were 3-7. And it was kind of a satire of saying it's the Egg Bowl, and so it stuck, and that's where it got its name and foundation. But there is no love lost between either team that day.
No. Coach, you were playing high school football in Biloxi, Mississippi. What were your opinions of that game, the rivalry, and how maybe different the fan bases were on each side of it?
Well, as we know, Mississippi State's agriculture, so you had the farmers versus the doctors and the attorneys, and and the owners back then of all the big farmland. But growing up, Mississippi was great. You know, you had Crispino, you had Gibbs, you had all the great players, and Coach Bryant would never play Mississippi because one of them would win and it would take them out of a major bowl game. So LSU, Mississippi, and Alabama wouldn't play each other because of the opportunity of going to a major bowl game. But, you know, they dominated, even in the SEC. Mississippi, when Coach Vaught was there, was really outstanding. Now, when I came on the scene, I called them Mississippi instead of Ole Miss, and they didn't like it. So when I found out they didn't like it, I said it more and more, and to upset them. So, you know, the rivalry really became very, very intense.
I love that. The fact that you knew that they didn't like you being called Mississippi, so you're just like, I'm going to double down, I'm going to go on it. And so, Coach, when you look at this, if I'm not mistaken, the first year you went into this rivalry game was the first time it was been played back at home in Starkville, if I'm not mistaken. Like, that was a huge game.
We played, yes, and we won the first game. But, you know, it didn't matter where the game was. You were going to have a lot of tension, and there was quite a few scuffles before the game between the teams. It was hard. And that caused the SEC to make sure that you did not cross the 50-yard line, that you had to stay on your side of the 50, and they would put the officials across the field on the 50 to make sure, and that was because of the Egg Bowl.
So the Egg Bowl is the reason why we have that rule, is because of just how fired up that environment was.
Yeah, and it still is. You know, the game this year will be, you know, because you have Mississippi that has the chance to go on and get into the playoff, and you have so this game means an awful lot for the winner. It could be where Mississippi State could, possibly could get enough wins, but it'd be hard because they play Georgia this week, and that's going to be a hard game.
Coach, you were always known for having some unique motivational tactics when it came to getting your team ready for the game. When you went up against Ole Miss, was there ever anything that you did was way outside of the box, or anything that you would do a little special during the week of the Egg Bowl?
Well, it started years ago, Chris, when I was assistant for Coach Majors at Pitt. We'd play Notre Dame. I'd dress up like a leprechaun, and you can see my body in a leprechaun. But anyway, then we'd play Florida State, and I'd dress up in the full dress with, ankle bells and do those things. I did do this, and I would try to do something, and I learned it from Oklahoma, Barry Switzer. I'd go, first time I went to watch Oklahoma practice on a Friday, they were just out on the field just playing grab. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, they're not focusing. But when I realized, as you know, Friday, we've done all the work. And Friday should be for the players to relax, understand you're still going through all your checklists, but it's a different type rather than really, and there's some coaches that don't want you to talk, don't want you to do anything, and I think that's wrong. I think the players, you're ready to play, go play. And so from that point on, from visiting Barry in Oklahoma, I always did something on Friday. And later at A&M, I had a player that would do a poem on Friday, and players would laugh like crazy. So, I did some things, but I can't say on this podcast.
let me ask you this way then. Again, like coaches will say, every game you treat the same. We're nameless, faceless opponents, but that's not true, and we know that's not true. Like the approach to playing your rivals. How did Coach Bryant approach those things? How were you able to take some of what he maybe did into what you did as a coach?
Well, you knew when we played Tennessee or we played Auburn, the big games, Georgia, you knew it meant something to Coach Bryant because he was extremely focused. And when we played somebody we should beat, he was more relaxed, didn't say it. But the week that you played, it meant you better get ready to play because and he wouldn't. Coach Bryant was kind of like John Wooden in basketball. He would never say anything on game day. Whatever happened on the field, you didn't see him holler or scream. But Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, yes, you got out a little, yeah. People that meet, and Chris, you can talk. People that today, if you look at the top 10 teams, those coaches are not their players' friends. They're coaches. And what we're having today, and you see it because of NIL, because of transfer, I'm losing player, I don't. The coaches that treat the players like a coach, it's the same thing as a parent. You're not your kid's friend. You're the parent. And a coach is the coach. He's not the player's friends. And, playing for Steve, you wasn't Steve's friend either. But later in life, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally true.
It's just the idea of the changing in philosophies now, especially with the transfer portal, it's a mess. Like when we started looking at this rivalry, and you were part of it for so many years, Coach, what's your favorite game when you go back and look at this Egg Bowl? Was there one that stood out to you?
Well, the first one, because naturally you wasn't favored to win, and you were able to win, and it gave your fans the feeling that I was the right coach. I'm just talking about personally. but it gave validity to what you were trying to do. And Chris, you talk about doing something. I had a old car brought in, put at the student union, and had sledgehammers and raised money, charged you $1 to hit the car and do some things that, so you raised money, but the students got ready to play Mississippi. So, yeah.
That is amazing.
Coach, what was that? What was that home field advantage like playing in front of that crowd there in Starkville? The cowbells ringing. I mean, describe. I know what it's like as a visitor, and I didn't fare well there going as a player. But knowing that you have that crowd behind you, that kind of environment, what's it like walking out onto the field there at Davis Wade?
Well, people don't realize, and certainly teams that come in and visitors that come in, they have no idea how loud the cowbells are and how annoying the cowbells. I mean, it's not like music. You can play music or band can play, no big deal. But when the cowbells ring, it's a little annoying, and it does distract you from what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Coach, when you go back and look, and I look at this game, 99, the pick and the kick, and in that game right there is that you guys, it looks like, I mean, Ole Miss or Mississippi, as you call it, yeah, they were winning that game pretty close. They could have probably taken a knee and kneeled it, and then they end up throwing the interception late. Walk us through the 1999 game.
Well, we're not going to win the game. I mean, you're fighting to win, but they're ahead. They're in control. We can't stop them. And they elect to throw the football, and we intercept, come down, then we line up and kick the field goal. There was 2 games in memory. We won another game that we wasn't going to win, and that was against Texas A&M in the Snow Bowl. Same thing. If they had not thrown the football, we don't win that game. So it comes back down to sometimes coaches get a little aggressive and want to run the points up rather than saying, we have the game won. It doesn't matter if it's 1 point or whatever. Let's get the game over with and go to the house.
Coach, I think fan bases like the idea that coaches don't like one another. And in looking at the Egg Bowl now, Jeff Levy, the Mississippi State coach, was on the Ole Miss staff with Lane Kiffin. Those guys are still friendly and banter back and forth. What was your relationship like with the coaches at Ole Miss when you played against those guys?
With Billy, Billy, and going back when I was at Alabama, he was coaching at Columbus Brewer, Billy Brewer. And I would go over and actually help with his kids, and so we had an association years ago, but I don't see Steve Spurrier having a dinner with Bobby Bowden. No. So there's no such thing. And even today, Kiffin, Levy worked for Kiffin or on the staff. But I can tell you that when that game kicks off, there's not any friendship there. There's an association, but one wants to win as much as the other. And you look at the games, the fan base doesn't allow you to go have dinner. I mean, that fan base of Mississippi and Mississippi State doesn't allow the head coaches to be having dinner together.
Yeah. And that's part of the rivalry, and especially when it comes around Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, there's so much. You got to pick a side. We see that in the Iron Bowl. We see that, of course, in the Egg Bowl. And of course, we see that a lot in the recruiting. We've heard some great battles. Houston Nuts talked about the recruiting battles between guys trying to decide between Mississippi State and Ole Miss. How often did you go up against them as far as big-time recruits? Any stories stand out to you as far as guys that you were able to get that were going to go to Ole Miss, or vice versa, guys that you missed out on that ultimately went to Mississippi?
Well, Fred Smoot was one, being recruited by everybody. And, we for a period of time when I was there, if you could get every player in the state of Mississippi at one school, then it would help you win a lot more games. But there's not enough players in the state of Mississippi to supply to Mississippi State, and Southern. There's just, when you have Alabama, Tennessee, LSU coming in to the state. So it spreads you kind of thin. Now, I will have to tip my hat to Lane. Lane has done a great job in getting the kids in the portal and building the teams. Letty has done a great job coaching this year. So, but in the state, you're going after the best players. So both teams are after that player very, very hot and heavy.
Mm-hmm. Because it is the final game of the season. It is around the holiday time. When is this game? When's it best played? Is it a Thanksgiving night game? Is it Black Friday? Is it Saturday? I mean, what's your preference?
Well, I always like Thanksgiving night because, you have the only game on TV at that time. And everybody has usually had their dinner or had their lunch, Thanksgiving lunch. And so they're ready to sit down. And the rating for a Thursday night game, and if it's two good teams, is awful high. And, that was started back in the 80s when ESPN really took over and started the ESPN Thursday night games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see it.
I'll
That's
say this,
why
Coach.
it's become.
We played the first and last game in the history of Thursday night games for the University of Florida at Starkville against you guys. After you guys killed us, Coach Spurrier said that'll never happen again. And Florida's never played on Thursday since.
No. Playing Steve was a lot of fun. Steve, unreal coach, as you know.
Yeah.
But you certainly did not want to play golf with him. He will not say a word for 18 holes. He will grind you to death. He is competitor
he is.
Through and through.
And I love that. And that's the competition that we have here in this conference. The slogan, it just means more, and that, on the field and off the field. So, Coach, was there a player in that Egg Bowl on the other side of it at Mississippi, at Ole Miss, that you looked at as like, that guy's going to be a problem? Which of those guys that played at Ole Miss, when you looked at, you highlighted going, oh, we're in for a long day because this guy's so good? Well,
there's quite a few of them. They had some great running backs at that time, and one played for the Saints for a long time, and
Deuce McAllister, yeah.
Oh yeah, and we had a big battle of recruiting. I thought we had him, and all of a sudden he signed with them. But anyway, he could play. He was a big player, but they have had players year after year. Mississippi, because you're sitting close to Memphis, so you actually get the kids out of Memphis, and there were a lot of excellent players in Memphis. And you also have the opportunity, because of the history, all the way back to the Vault days and all the way back to the Manning when he was there, that it has some great football players that have gone on, and some of the greatest that's played in pro ball. So, you can't fault. I can't, but that doesn't mean I don't want to beat them.
Coach, we've talked to a number of Ole Miss players that said, hey, we would get into Starkville and get out of Starkville as fast as we could. Didn't go there for any other reason other than to play. Did you ever go to Oxford? I mean, have you spent time there outside of playing there as a visitor?
Hey, one time in Oxford, and that was with Billy Brewer. We actually went downtown to a restaurant, and there was a lot of people looking like, what in the hell is he doing here?
I was
No,
going to say, was that in the? I was going to say, I guess in the off season,
no,
or
no.
that you guys
That was after Billy retired, and we
okay?
both.
So
Yeah.
even after you guys weren't competitors anymore, it wasn't acceptable in the eyes of the fans there, huh?
No, not at all. No.
That's funny.
You know it again. And you were there. How many times do you see Coach Spurrier and Coach Bowden having dinner together? That ain't
Nope,
gonna happen.
never. Nope.
No.
It is again why the rivalry means so much. This is one thing we've been doing to everybody in this podcast, and you hear these great stories, is flip it on the other side of it.
I don't know if he can do
So,
it. I don't think he can do it, PB.
okay, what's something nice you can say about Ole Miss football, Jackie Sherrill?
When I was growing up, I really was thinking about going to Mississippi because that's when you had all the great players, Crispino and Gibbs, and they were a great football team. And however, I had a coach that came in, and Coach Bryant talked me to going into Alabama. And he never asked me to come. He just talked about the players, talked about Alabama, and I said, I want to go play for him.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So the thing that the great Jackie Sherrill could have been an Ole Miss rebel. I mean, that shakes me to my core, Coach.
Well, they may not have wanted me as much as Alabama either, so it was all right.
Things work out the way they're supposed to.
Yeah,
it is
Well,
fantastic. Any last thoughts or memories on that Egg Bowl, Coach?
well, going to Oxford, you could say, you'd drive over the day of the game and play, but I never liked that because I thought it was just too long for the players to just sit on a bus, even though it wasn't that far. However, in trying to stay somewhere was hard. You either teams that have to stay in Memphis, and there's not any hotels around, and so it's hard to go play in Oxford because the opposing team still has to travel the day of the game a pretty good clip.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you ever any time worries when you would stay close to Oxford that you were worried that somebody might put something in the food or get the fire alarm late at night to make sure you guys were awake?
Well, I never thought that, but going into LSU and going into Oxford, your bus may get swayed back and forth with the people pushing on your bus.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's still, LSU and Oxford can now going through the Grove. If you're an adult, people ask all the time, should I go to Mississippi or Mississippi State for a game? If you're an adult, go to Mississippi, but because the Grove is the place for the adults. If you want to take kids, go to Mississippi State because they have a big outdoor playground for the kids before the game.
Man, I could listen to Jackie Sherrill for hours, just the stories that he has. And a person that we had a chance to talk to is man that really kind of lit a fire into this rivalry down in Stark, Vegas. And talking about the school up north, we know who we're talking about, Coach Dan Mullen. We've gone back and forth of all these great stories. So let's start with this. When I say Egg Bowl, what comes to mind?
One of the greatest rivalries in college football. It is the passion. At any time that you have a rivalry that's in state, right? There are some great ones, right? I mean, and I don't want to downplay the Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Notre Dame, some of these great things that are out there. Hey, Harvard, Yale, even, right? But when you hear rivalries are college football special, but when you're in the same state, That means, right, the winner of that game gets to go to, like they always say, go to church every Sunday in the state of Mississippi with their head held high, their chest stuck out far. I think right, the collection boxes go a little bit low the day after the Egg Bowl because half the people are missing, right? They don't want to show up they're like, I just can't show my face in public at least for 2 weeks, and then I got to bite my lip and live it for the next year.
So you're from the Northeast, Coach. You spent time coaching around the country. You were in the SEC as an assistant at Florida. But, stepping into that state of Mississippi and understanding what the Egg Bowl meant, what was it like in terms of the way it was described to you when you first took the job in Starkville versus what it was when you first experienced it for yourself?
Well, I tell you what, when I took the job, and they're looking at me, administrators, even like our fans, boosters, they're coming up to me like, hey, Coach, if we can get to a bowl game every couple of years and beat Ole Miss more than not, right? We got to win that game. Have a winning record in the Egg Bowl and get to a bowl game every couple of years. Boy, you're gonna be a legend here. And you know what? It's obviously, I think, like we started winning a lot more than that, and they started, they kind of like, it's like I say, hey, you go to a restaurant, have that filet mignon, it tastes a little better than the hamburger steak. So they got that image changed to, we better get to a big time bowl game every year and beat Ole Miss every season. But it was something that was special, and it was something, to be honest with you, when I got there, we were looking for ways to build the program, right? What's one thing that we can go grasp within our program to start things off? And the first thing we did was kind of light a match under the rivalry with, the school up north, not calling them by name, and just trying to create a rallying cry around our fan base that they bought into.
And that was one of those things, right? I mean, we've heard even from Ole Miss fans and Ole Miss players would be like, man, when they would describe us as a school up north, like that really got upset. Jackie Sherrill ended up telling us that he was like, he enjoyed calling them Mississippi. He just called them Mississippi at first, and then he found out that Ole Miss fans hated that, so he just continued to do it. Which lights that match.
How long did it take, though, Coach, before you really? I'm sure you were finding something to light that match, but before it really became ingrained in you, and you weren't just trying to do something; it was authentically, some disdain for what Ole Miss was about.
Well, it was day one, and you know what? Being in football, I'd been around some rivalries, and you really grasp and understand rivalries, right? Whether it's Bowling Green, Toledo. Right? I mean, Utah, BYU, the Holy War, which is on the level. They're right there, of biggest rivalry games I've been involved in. I mean, we got the battle coming up. We play Reno for the Fremont Cannon, right? And you go around here in Las Vegas and UNLV, like, Coach, it's amazing. UNLV hasn't won a whole lot. It's awesome. We're winning now. But you got to beat Reno. Like, the rest of it doesn't matter. And so the rivalry aspect of things is so huge. So embracing that day one and the fans seeing how much you embraced that day one in the state of Mississippi kind of endeared you to their hearts right away.
Let me ask you real quick. You mentioned your time at Bowling Green. You mentioned your time at Utah. You were with Coach Meyer at both those places. You're at Florida with Coach Meyer. He always seemed to excel against the rivals. Did you do something different in approach to those games from a practice standpoint or a strategy standpoint itself?
It wasn't you had to, but if you built it up as an important one, the tricky one, as you know, at Florida, I felt when we got to Florida, the tricky one was there's almost three, depending on we looked at what age group you are, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we jumped on Florida State being the biggest rival, which I think a lot of people would jump on and agree with, right? When we got there. And so there was always a focus on that game is different. Now, I think when we got there, Tennessee seemed to be a big one because they were so hot, and it was game one of the season. And then obviously the Florida-Georgia game is a special game that you go play in with the neutral site and all of that stuff. But I think it is when you just discuss the importance of things. And you make you don't practice different. You don't prepare different. There's just all the subtleness, right? Of, whether there's stickers in urinals, whether there's,
Did you guys ever do that? Did you ever put the
I'm
stickers in
not,
the urinal, or what
I'm
was the
not gonna,
craziest thing you did at the facility?
I'm not gonna get to all our secrets, right? But, there would be, for the Egg Bowl especially, every TV in the facility just rolled old Egg Bowl highlights. And I mean, talking about the big wins, fights on the field. It just rolled 24/7. The day that that Sunday morning, if you came in the building, it was rolling, right? The Egg Bowl trophy would be in sight, but you couldn't touch it because now it's game week and you're not allowed to touch it anymore, right? And until you go win it the next Saturday. Just all the messages, so everyone knows from the day they walk in. Your routine, everything isn't different, but everything about the building is very, very different for that week.
Was there a favorite one that you had? Because you were in a bunch of them. Is there one, either memory or one game that stands
Well,
out?
I'll give you, the biggest one is the first one was special. I will laugh at this. Is they were a really good team. I think we're 4-7, and our Thursday practice. I came out of Thursday practice. It's Thanksgiving Day. We practice in the morning. Let everybody go home for Thanksgiving. I came home, and I think we had our worst practice of the year. I don't know if we completed a pass. And I'm like, we're about to get absolutely blown out. I've been running my mouth. We're about to get blown out in this game, and somehow we blow them out, right? And Houston Nutt grabbed and said, "There's, in the newspaper in that week he had a quote that said, hey, there's a great school in the state that is on the rise," meaning them being a top 25 team. And the game ended. I grabbed a mic and they put me on the Jumbotron. And I said, I want to make one thing clear. There is one school in this state that is definitely on the rise. And I dropped the mic and walked away. And the place went nuts. But the greatest memory had to be 2013. We're 5-6 at the time. Have to win to get to a bowl game. We've had a bunch of quarterback injuries throughout the year. Dak Prescott had been hurt 3-day games earlier. We had just come off an overtime win at Arkansas to get us there. We had to kind of win out to get to bowl games, to even get to a bowl game. And Dak Prescott got hurt against Texas A&M with a shoulder injury, and it was one of these rare ones. He got hit in the back where he could not move his arm. He could not lift his arm. And even the day before the game, he could not move his arm past like even shoulder length. And, we did everything. Sent him, had acupuncture, sent him to a special masseuse, and I think that did the difference in Starkville, right? I'll give Amy Winston a shout out. I don't know what she did, but more importantly, his mom had just passed away a couple weeks earlier. He came in, and our team doctor walked up to me right before the game, and he said, I don't have a medical reason. He has movement in his arm, and it happened in the last 6 hours, and I can clear him to play. And he said, the greatest one is, he said, he might be able to play one play, and it might just go dead again. He goes, nothing short of a miracle is how this has happened. And so in the back of my mind, I'm like, he said, Coach, they clear me to play. Well, I can't put him out there, play one of the game. And he gets hurt and goes down, right? He comes out after one play. I think that would have deflated the stadium. It was at home. It would have been out of control. We're down, I think, in the fourth quarter. And I look, and I said, what do you think? And he said, I'm going to do it. And he leads us back in the fourth quarter, 2-minute drive all the way down the field, right, to tie the game. We go to overtime. He runs over a guy at the goal line to score the touchdown. And all of a sudden, it's out of control. All of a sudden, Ole Miss is going in to score out of nowhere. Nico Whitley playing on a torn ACL, tore his ACL. And they said, you have to have surgery. And he said, not till after this game. Like, I don't know how he did it. As Bo Wallace about to cross the goal line, punches the ball out. Jamerson Love scoops it up, runs out of the back of the end zone. We win, not only win, go to a bowl game, beat Rice in the bowl game because we get a couple people healthy, go on a stretch, and the next thing you know, we're the number one team in the country in 2014.
Wow.
And all because of this miracle moment that somehow a hand from above, which had to be his mom, reached out and touched him to play in that game.
That's an awesome story, Coach. I see the emotion, man. It's giving me chills hearing you tell it. That's awesome. Hey, we messed up, Coach. We did an hour-long sit-down with the head ball coach, Coach Spurrier, and didn't ask him a question. I would put you – you're one of the best play designers and play callers I've ever been around. In the Egg Bowl, I need you to give me your best play call and the one that keeps you up at night, the one that you messed up on that you'd love to have back.
Oof. There was, I'm trying to think of the best one. I want to go probably, we had a game plan in the 2010 Egg Bowl, the second year. We had Chris Ralph playing quarterback. Mm-hmm. And we put in something we hadn't run, which is kind of this, some QB zone read plays that we hadn't run, a tackle trap QB zone read. I think it was that one. And it was a tighter game. It was up in Oxford. We hadn't won there in a while. And, all of a sudden, they hadn't seen it before. They all go for the fake. We pull the tackle trap. Ralph takes off and basically goes, the length of the field to kind of open the game wide open. Was a huge one. I think that was one of the bigger ones. We did something similar later with Nick Fitzgerald in a game where we were an underdog and we absolutely blew them out with kind of the similar deal where we kind of we held some things we hadn't shown before, got into some unbalanced look with some quarterback read plays. I think had to be one of the biggest ones. One of the funniest ones might have been Chris Ralph, though, my first year. I think it was a 4th and 8, and we call a pass play, and it's a clear dig, and he hits the clear is Chad Bumpus, and Chris Ralph on 4th and 8 throws the ball, hits Chad Bumpus. He runs it in the clear route for a touchdown, and he comes off the field. I'm like, how'd you get there? It's like I was actually throwing it to the dig. I just way overthrew him. And I said, it's a long time ago now. This is right back in 2009. I said, well, Chris, certainly in the press conference, I would take credit for the read of throwing the clear route down the middle of the field. Not that you overthrew the receiver so bad it hit the guy way behind him down the field for a touchdown.
Hey,
Dan,
it's like a golfer. Yeah, I mean, it's like a golfer. Like, hey, how'd you make birdie there? Don't worry about it. I just made birdie. Like, you don't need to know that I just shanked it and I got back in the fairway and I made a 40-footer or something like that.
The greatest Egg Bowl play you're going to run, though, is victory, right? Take a knee at the end of the game and you win. Yep. Even though I think our first one, we did it on the 3-yard line and they were booing because they had that moment because they wanted to keep scoring. The hardest one, the one that really sticks out to me, 2014, both of us at one point, we're number one. We're number one. They're number 2 in the country. Huge game. We end up, both our starting safeties go down and we give up couple 80-yard touchdown plays. But late in the game, we have a drive to get right back in it, make it a 1-score game right with a couple minutes to go, and I think we ended up throwing it 3 times from the 4-yard line, and should have pounded the ball in right there, got it to the 1-score. We end up, and then on 4th down, we try a jump pass, guy gets tangled up, and I motioned a guy. I didn't need to motion somebody. We called a motion with it, and it brought a guy in that tipped the ball away and kept it a 2-score game with about 6-7 minutes to go, right around there. And and weren't able to come back.
When you look at this, Dan, too, and on the other side, was there one Ole Miss player when you would look at it tape or preparing that week, you're like, this guy's just a pain. Like, just, I mean, how are we going to have to deal with them or just ate you guys up?
Boy, I don't know. There's so many. They've had so many good players. It's hard. It's hard to pick one, right? Because every year
Yeah.
there's so many of those different guys. I mean, you're playing it for 9 years. I mean, they had some great quarterbacks throughout the years. Uh, some great wideouts. It's hard to pick one because too, a lot of the guys, right? I mean, you're recruiting
Yeah.
head to head for those guys. And it's much easier now on the back end, being much removed. Like you see, I can say Ole Miss now, right? I mean, for 9 years, I never, people, right? I remember, you just say it. I mean, you go, it's such a heated rivalry. So I went into a school one time. I think, we were on a winning streak against them. And this lady comes up to me, I think works at the school, either a counselor, or it was one of the principals, came up to me and she's like, Coach, hey, you're doing a great job. I said, hey, really, thank you. It's like, every day I pray for you and your family. And I said, that's so kind of you. I really appreciate that. She goes, yeah, I pray to hell someone pays you a lot of money to get the hell out of this state. Hotty, and walked away.
That's actually a backhanded compliment there.
Yeah.
Right? Hey,
But it's just such a heated rivalry. It's just crazy. Like, I wear red. Like, here at UNLV, I had to go through. I mean, being at Mississippi State or Florida, I don't own anything. I got hired, and they're like, hey, got some red to put on. I don't own that. There's not one thing in my house that's red. Nothing. Not one thing. And now, like, my whole house is red, so I had to go buy a whole new wardrobe.
That's funny. Coach, we've kept you a long time. Last question, though. You mentioned recruiting, and in that state, you go head-to-head all the time. Who's the player that got away that you thought you had locked up that ended up going the other way, and you still regret losing? Anybody?
Ooh. Oh, boy. I mean, there are a ton. Maybe the C.J. Johnson jumps out to me from Philadelphia that we really wanted to get. He was a big one, a 5-star edge rusher. I think, and it goes back and forth though. The biggest one we held on to was Chris Jones. And I remember that one with the Thorpe Award. One of the great recruiting stories that Chris Jones won we're coming back the night before signing day. John Banks had won the Thorpe. So we're flying back from the banquet at Oklahoma. The pilot gets on and it's like, hey, the GTR, there's fog in Mississippi, which, that time of year is always fog in Mississippi. It's closed. We got to go land in Tupelo. So we land. It's like 1:30 in the morning. We're landing in Tupelo the night before signing day. I'm in the car driving back from Tupelo to Starkville. The phone rings and it's Chris Jones at 2 a.m. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way this is going to happen. Yeah. He's like, Coach, how you doing? I'm like, I'm great. How are you, Chris? He's like, just making sure you're excited for me sending my papers in tomorrow morning. And I was like, almost crashed the car. Like, so many of them came, back and forth right down to the wire. And, one of the things that's crazy is you look at the success those schools have had, right? And throw Southern Miss even in there through the years. Mm-hmm. And there's one school in the state of Mississippi. I mean, it's the smallest population state in the SEC. And there's 2 schools, and so many great players I took the job because I got on I remember taking the job, looking on the website. I'm like, hey, this Fletcher Cox kid's already committed and they don't have a head coach right now. Man, if we can get guys like a Fletcher Cox, we can win at this school. And then you start looking about it. Yeah. Hey, Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, Steve McNair, Brett Favre, Jackie Slater, Hugh Green. None of them went to Mississippi State. I'm like, but if we could have just gotten the kids at Mississippi, the Sports Hall of Fame at Mississippi State would be incredible. And it's such a great state. So many great people. I mean, I love all the people in Mississippi, and it's what makes it. The people make it such a special deal, and so many great memories. But you got to win that trophy. right? I mean, you go talk to Mark Keenum, Dr. Keenum there at Mississippi State, and he'd come and say, Coach, I think what my favorite day of the year is when we win the Egg Bowl and you present me the trophy in the locker room. I mean, you're not going to go to colleges. I'll give this with Dr. Keenum. He was at practice every day of Egg Bowl week. I mean, you're talking the president of the university is at practice, making sure we have the right mindset. That it's a big game.
Yeah.
When the president's at practice
Dan, last
every
thing
day.
for you on this. Yeah, when the president's there, that's impressive. Last thing for you here, and we've asked all of our guests here on this podcast to do it. Say something nice about your rival. So say something nice about Ole Miss. What comes to mind?
Oh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Right there. I'm friends with Lane Kiffin, and I think he's doing a heck of a job. Lane is doing an unbelievable job right now for Ole Miss, and I've been friends with Lane a while. I love Lane. I think he does an amazing job and has done an amazing job at that school. You have to bring a little bit something different when you're coaching in that state, like we said. And I think he's really embraced the state of Mississippi and done an amazing job. Was that nice?
Is that what school is that? What school is that he's a head coach of?
The school up north?
Just want to make sure.
I don't know.
Want to make sure it was the school up north still for this rivalry. It's great memories. It's one of the legends to ever do it. Dan Mullen, we appreciate your time and your thoughts on the Egg Bowl.
Thank you, Coach.
I got to be honest with you. I think Dan still misses the Egg Bowl to a certain extent, CD.
I think he misses it. I think he also brings a little bit of that same sort of like Spurrier jab at the opponent thing. And he learned from one of the best in terms of winning rivalry games in Urban Meyer.
He was able to get it done. Now, our last guest here on the Mississippi State side of the Egg Bowl rivalry has a very interesting demeanor to him. And I say that because he's a former Mississippi State player and also an Ole Miss team doctor. So we get to see a little bit of everything. Of course, we're talking about the legendary linebacker, Daniel Boyd. Well, CD, we've talked to a couple of Ole Miss players, and we've talked to coaches on both sides. How about somebody that's been affiliated with the Egg Bowl on both sides? Let's start with, as a player, Daniel Boyd, one of the best linebackers that State has ever had back in the early 90s. Daniel, welcome into the show. And when I say the words Egg Bowl, what comes to mind?
Usually pain, headaches, injury, anything dirty that can happen on the field is usually what goes on beneath the pile. At least it did in years past. Now, I would say that in the last 10, 15 years, the tenor of both sides on the field has improved a little bit more rational. We're worried about winning a football game rather than let's see if we can hurt the other guy. So maybe there is some grace on both sides and some improvement with the way we play.
Where's that level of contempt come from? I mean, the disdain you talked about from when you were playing and from before that, is that passed down generationally? I mean, how does that come about originally?
I think it's the fan bases. I think it is, at least prior to NIL, you had in-state players playing one another, regional players. With NIL, we change almost yearly our roster. So things are a little bit different now. But prior to NIL, I think the hatred came from you have a state of Mississippi that is a population of less than 3 million people. It is located in the southeast where there are not as many professional sports. So they are focused their livelihood, talents, and everything they have on college football. And it is a little different than you see from Ohio State and Michigan, even Auburn, Alabama, because those fan bases are larger, but it's just different when it seems like everyone wants to fight in the middle of their own living room.
I mean, we do that all the time around family engagements, especially around the holidays. It just happens to be wrapped around a great rivalry. Which one of the Egg Bowls that you played in was your favorite? Do you have a favorite memory of any of those when you were at State?
I think, this rivalry was with Ole Miss, was played in Jackson, Mississippi for many years at Jackson Veterans Memorial Stadium. And then we moved it on campus. And those that are currently going to these games and younger people, they would think, why in the world would you have it in a neutral spot? Why, this is great when it's on campus. They can't fathom having this game in Jackson. But the best game for me was when the teams returned to the campus sites. 1991, it was the first year we had brought the game back to campus. We ended up winning. My co-linebacker and I actually put one of the now administrators of Ole Miss in the hospital that game. And it was a game that I remember because of an offensive coordinator for Ole Miss, God rest his soul, had the habit of coming way out to the numbers when he wanted to change a call or wanted to make sure the quarterback had the call. And by the second quarter, I had maybe a third of his signals figured out. And so Coach Sherrill we'd come to the sidelines and he'd yell, "What's taking you so long to get him out of the huddle? Come on, hurry up, hurry up." And I said, "Coach, all I'm doing is waiting to see if this guy will come out to the numbers and tell me what they're about to run." And there were times when literally it was, okay, they're about to run the trap in the middle. And I'd tell my nose guard he's about to be trapped, and he would eat it up. And on key third down situations, it was fantastic. It was a great thing knowing what they were about to do and figuring it out and then having some success. And my players in the huddle liked me for it.
All right, hold on now.
The Mississippi State Ole Miss game has had espionage. I mean, this is before the whole, Michigan.
Oh, sign stealing, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I can remember practicing and Coach Sherrill blowing the whistle and taking the offense inside and yelling at the trainers because he couldn't get the flight paths of planes changed because planes were flying over the field, and he was worried about them filming practice. We caught people in bushes. Now, we were doing the same thing, but back in the 80s, there was a lot of espionage going on, and that carried to the late 80s and early 90s when I played. And while I didn't know any plays before the game in 1991 from this double top secret Spygate they were instituting, I figured it out enough in the first two quarters to at least make a few plays.
So this has had to be the point where everybody realized that you were going to turn out to be something much more important than a football player. A linebacker that can sit in the huddle and decipher the signals all while the time directing everybody else to what they got to do and play your assignment, man. That's a lot of talent and a high level of intellectual ability there, man.
Well, it may have just been sheer stupidity. When you figure out, when you think you know the play and you say, just forget that call, here's what's about to happen, just go get them. That was the play call. Go get them.
And it worked. Were you on the 92 team? Yeah, was that your last year?
Yes, the last year was my last year was 92. Okay. We played in Oxford. That was the first time the game had returned to Oxford. It was really cold, as some of these Egg Bowls can be. And the thing I remember most was getting hit throughout the game by empty whiskey bottles from the student section on the bench. We had to wear our helmets the whole game on the bench. And I can remember going to this university police officer that was standing near the bench and saying, hey, are you going to do anything about this? We're getting killed with all this glass. This guy's over here bleeding. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see anything happening. And I'm like, yeah, I know where we are now. That was a little bit of awesomeness that I still remember and appreciate. And I don't know where that police officer was, but he probably was a part of the win for Ole Miss.
Well, and they won that game 17-10. If I remember, that was, you guys had a bunch of different plays inside the Rebel 10 to get by there when I do my research on it. But y'all caused 7 turnovers that day. Your defense did, and still lost the game. How did you guys lose that game?
Well, we had a chance, and to Ole Miss's credit, that is known as the stand. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of chances inside the 10-yard line going in, and their defense, Cassius Ware and others, man, they came hard off the edge and stopped our offense cold. And give them credit, they deserve the win after making that stand. And I used to, as a medical student, I got to rotate at Mississippi State with the family medicine rotation at Mississippi State. Still don't know how I convinced them that I could do that at the medical center. But during that rotation, it was during two-a-days, and Joe Lee Dunn was the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss during those days that we were discussing. He was later the defensive coordinator at Mississippi State, and we would sit and have lunch in the cafeteria together at Mississippi State during those two-a-days and laugh, and he would talk about the plays he called, and I would talk about his crazy signals where he'd blow into his fist, and that meant, send everybody. And those were good times, reliving with those coaches that were opposing me. I used to have breakfast on an occasional Saturday morning in Oxford with Coach Brewer before the Ole Miss games when he was alive. And we used to laugh at the rivalry in general and how everybody got worked up and how it was a great thing for the state. And so I actually missed those times a little bit, and am reminded when we, played the Egg Bowl again. Now I'm standing on the sidelines wearing red and blue, so I try to keep my head down and not say too much.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, CD, that's what I was going to talk about and jump in here real quick. A lot of people may not know you're on the other side of this equation in the Egg Bowl now. So tell everybody about what you do on the other side of the Egg Bowl equation.
So my wife grew up in Oxford, Mississippi, and after I got through training as an orthopedic surgeon, we moved to Oxford, Mississippi. And she told me that's where we were going. And as any halfway intelligent person would do, he followed what his wife said. So we ended up in Oxford, Mississippi, and my partners and I, certainly not me alone, my partners and I take care of all of Ole Miss athletics, student athletes, all the sports injuries. And so my partners and I are the ones on the sidelines helping with the athletes. And so we are there, and our job is to make it harder for Mississippi State to win by putting out the best product we can, helping athletes heal the fastest and perform better. And we let the chips fall where they may. I've been accused of wearing maroon underwear on the sidelines, but during that Egg Bowl week, I do not show up to practice. I'm not around anyone. I don't talk to anyone. Things can get crazy. And so I do not put our practice in a position to be accused of anything. I told you, thing's been filled with espionage, and I'm not going to be the one that gets in the middle of that.
So have you ever been approached by a Mississippi State person to try to provide any sort of upper hand or insight at all?
Look, as we're finding out with the NBA, there are people that want to know about injuries all the time. And, it's just part of the job where you learn to say the words, he's a game time decision. It doesn't matter if we're talking about he's got measles, he's got a concussion, or a broken leg. Whatever it is, he's a game time decision. That's all you got to
Hey,
say.
So we've actually gone through the habit of talking to everybody involved in the Egg Bowl, and at the end we ask them to say something nice about the opposition. You probably better than anybody have the ability to say something nice about the people you work with there on the Ole Miss side. Has it been tough to kind of acclimate to being more neutral, or even becoming more friendly with the Ole Miss folks?
I am Switzerland during this week. I Mississippi State was a springboard to the rest of my life, and I am so appreciative of the opportunities that they afforded me. You remember this playing as a Gator, and got you into professional athletics, and then now doing what you're doing. All of that started during two-a-days as a freshman, and you going to class, and the University of Florida giving you the opportunity to better yourself and create a life. Well, that's what happened to me. Mississippi State was everything to my wife and I. They gave me the opportunity to go and get an education and hopefully be an influence and have the ability to help heal others. And so I am appreciative of them and everything that I was afforded. But now it's my job, just as if I was coaching at Mississippi State, and now I'm a coach at Ole Miss. Now it's my job to put my heart and soul in the kids that are here at Ole Miss. And so, when you know these kids personally, you know their background, you've met their parents, it's easy to root for them. And I try really hard to help them be a better player. And if that means they win against the Bulldogs, I'm sorry to all the Ole Miss fans, but I'm just claiming I'm doing my job.
Daniel, we had a chance to talk to Jackie Sherrill on this, and he was so fascinating and one of the legends of just college football in general. Is there a favorite story that you have about Coach Sherrill that still to this day, if you see him or you talk to some of your teammates, it stands out, whether it be the Egg Bowl or just playing for him at State?
Coach Sherrill was, he was hard, but he was a player's coach, in quotation, in that he really fought hard to help his guys, whether it be with, administration, getting you what you needed, or, on the sidelines. He wanted his team and his guys to excel. And I can remember going to Austin, Texas. We had beaten the University of Texas the year before in Starkville. It was a rematch in Austin, Texas. And the night before the game, he gave a pregame speech that, it was half true. Okay. It had grains of truth in the speech, but he had those guys eating out of the palm of his hand. He even cried during the speech. And those guys were so ready to play. We had already been in the locker room before you go out onto your walkthrough the night before the game, and you're in shorts and helmet, and you're just walking through practicing situational football, just like every team does the night before the game. And we had already run through the band. We had broken trombones and trumpets and anything else when the band tried to walk in front of the practice. And we had gone through that, and he used that to really fire up the guys. And I'm telling you, they were ready to play at bed check the night before. And we went out there the next day and had a good game and won reasonably well, reasonably handily. And I just remember looking over at our offensive coordinator, Watson Brown, while he's giving this speech and asking him, is he for real? Does anybody believe in this? And I turn around and look, and there's 65, 75 guys that are just ready to roll through the wall for him. And so he was a great motivator. And I, as well as my teammates, we played for him hard. We tried hard. We didn't have the greatest team. We had a pretty good team, and our quarterback got hurt. And so we had to overcome a lot not having our starting quarterback for most of the year. And Coach Sherrill, guys played hard for him. I'll say that. And that's what you want as a coach. I think the Egg Bowl was such an important game. It was a week of paranoia for the coaches, catching people, taking pictures in bushes, and knowing that somebody's cousin who's related to a taxi driver's uncle can all of a sudden spread information. I mean, it was lockdown. The week of Thanksgiving is lockdown. And it still may happen to this day, but it was real. The espionage was real. And so we didn't have a lot of production. We were too scared to speak up, and everybody kept their head down because the coaches were really uneasy.
And it's another reason why it's one of the best rivalries in all of sports, and what a unique way to see both sides of it. Daniel Boyd, we appreciate the time and the insight, and don't show up in practice that week for the Egg Bowl, and just make sure you do your job all right, okay? Man, Dr. Daniel Boyd, what a weird kind of setup he has being on both sides of this rivalry.
Yeah, he plays it well, but it's a great example of just how intertwined and close in proximity these two schools are, and why the disdain is probably as high as it is.
Well, we'll have the other side of the Egg Bowl rivalry. We'll listen to Houston Nutt. We got David Cutcliffe, Dexter McCluster as well on the flip side of the Egg Bowl from the Rebels side of everything. This is Regions Extra SEC Stories.